In this video, we're going to learn how to position HTML elements. We're going to use the same source code that we used for the floating video. We're just going to get rid of the floating properties for now. Alright, and also we can change the title to positioning. Okay. So, first of all, positioning means that we are setting a certain location for our HTML elements. And also we want to define how these elements are going to behave in the flow of the web page. So there are four types of positions. The first type is the static position, which is the standard position. So all the elements that we are seeing here for now are by default set to standard position. Static position. So static position means that they are all behaving according to the normal flow of the web page. The second type that we're going to apply for the Facebook div, for instance, is the fixed position. So the syntax is easy. So position fixed. So that's the property, and then we can define a top value. For instance, 20 pixels or 30 pixels and a left value. So first, fixed position means that Facebook now is positioned using a fixed position type, which means that all the other elements are ignoring Facebook in the flow of the web page. And top of 30 pixels means that we are 30 pixels away from the top of the page and 30 pixels away from the left of the page. All right, so that's what fixed position means. Now, if we move to the Apple div and we choose a position relative, and also let's set a top of 20 pixels, for instance, and a left of 20 pixels. So this means that Apple now is positioned relative to its original position, which was supposed to be to start there, and we are 20 pixels away from the top original position and 20 pixels away from the left original position. Unlike the fixed position, Apple still preserves its original position in the flow. So all the other elements, so Microsoft for instance, is still behaving as if Apple is still in its original position. And also Apple now shows on top of Facebook once we added the positioning to Apple, and we will understand why in a little bit. So now we're going to move to the Microsoft div, and we're going to define another type of position, and this time it's going to be the absolute position. So absolute positioning is a little bit different from the other two types. So let's set first a top of 40 pixels, for instance, and a left of 40 as well. So absolute positioning means that we are positioning the element relative to the first parent that is non-static. And if there is no such a parent that is non-static, then we're going to be positioning the element relative to the HTML elements, which is our case here. So now if we want to review how elements they show on top of the other, and we want to decide which element shows on top, then we can use a z-index property. Let's try that with Facebook, Apple. So let's give Facebook a z-index of 1, and let's give Apple a z-index of 2. So the element with the greater z-index is going to show on top of the other elements with the smaller z-index. Also, if there is an element with no z-index and all the other elements are having a z-index, then the elements with the z-index are going to show on top. So if we change the z-index of Apple now to 0, then we can see that Facebook now shows on top. Okay. Also, if there is an element that is positioned and all the other elements are not positioned, then that element which is positioned is going to show on top. So if we get rid of the, so let's say we get rid of the positioning of Apple. So Apple is going to show behind everything else, because everything else is positioned and Apple is not positioned. Okay. Also, if all the elements are positioned and there is no Z index, let's try that. So if we take out the Z index, so the element that comes last in the HTML code is going to be the one that shows on top. In our case, Microsoft will show on top of Apple, and Apple will show on top of Facebook, as far as we don't have any Z index. All right. So this is it regarding the positioning. In the next video, we're going to move to the display.